All right, so don't mind the mess. I just got done playing around with the factory fork to see what it looked like to add really thick 15W50 weight oil to that and removing the O-ring around the compression piston to give it more rebound damping but keep the compression damping under control. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about now we're taking it apart to install the Matris forks. Looks like pretty high quality stuff, honestly. I haven't disassembled it. Not planning to, but unless, you know, it doesn't work as expected. So I read through all the instructions. In a nutshell, the red side is going to be compression only. C for compression. And of course, spring and preload. So the red side goes on the left. What would be the driver's side of the bike if it was a car, or the non-brake side. So it looks like from the instructions, what we're going to need. Oh, this is kind of cool. I don't know if this is common because I haven't dealt with much aftermarket suspension. But this little ring right here, so the spring sits right in here. So this little ring kind of adjusts the preload range. There's 3 settings. So if you think you're going to need more preload for the springs, if you're on the heavier end of the springs you got, you can move this little ring up and then the spring will have automatically 4 millimeters more preload. If you're on the lighter end of the range for your springs, you can move it down and you'll have 4 millimeters less preload in the range. So that's kind of cool. That's something you can kind of adjust. And then obviously there's a lot of preload adjustment on these guys. So what it says we're going to need is the little cap that comes off the very end of the factory fork, and also the top out spring right there. So those are going to be placed on this. This whole thing is going to be put, we're probably going to take off all this stuff, but this whole thing is going to be placed, screwed into the factory fork with the factory bolt and everything, and then we're going to set the oil level right and then install the spring and everything. So we'll get all that done. I'll see how that goes and come back. All right, we have the top out spring. It came off the old suspension really easy. I just barely tapped it with a screwdriver, with a flat blade screwdriver, and it popped right off. Sorry, I'm trying to wrestle like 5 things while holding this, which isn't, I'm not great at it. It only goes on here one way. I assume it this way. It's not tight, but it slips in there pretty good. It does not go over the little shoulder, at least on the compression side. The other way, there is no shoulder on the rebound side. I'm not sure what's up with that. This cap is just gonna sit on there like that. I've already got the screw with a little bit of Loctite on it. One of the things about this, if you've never dealt with this sort of suspension thing before, what we're gonna do is try to shove this into the fork, and you may have to use some sort of mechanical device to spin this bolt, because this bolt's generally going to want to spin. I haven't tried this yet, but it's generally going to want to spin. So you need to use some sort of mechanical device. So this is 6 millimeter Allen. So somewhere around here. Take the old one apart. I've got I don't know what I did with it. It's around here somewhere. I've just got a chopped off, oh, it's right there. A chopped off 6 millimeter Allen wrench that I can chuck up into either this screwdriver or that impact gun down there, which has a 1/2 inch to 3/8 adapter to 1/4 adapter and a 6 millimeter socket on the end to use with this 6 millimeter cutoff Allen wrench if I need. So the goal is not to tighten it with that. You should be tightening it to whatever the factory spec is. I feel like it's around 16 foot-pounds, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. That is completely off the top of my head guess. So the point is not to tighten it to fully tight with whatever mechanical device you're using, but just to spin it really fast to get enough traction to kind of bottom this out so you can start tightening it. So you want to get started by hand, and if you can thread it in by hand all the way, cool, go for that. If it's just spinning, be aware that you might need something like a drill or an impact gun or something to spin it fast enough to tighten this down into the bottom and start kind of getting it together. And we'll be back. Okay, so even with the spinny gun, I was not able to get enough traction on this bolt to get it to tighten down. It's just spinning in there. So while this is not what the directions say, to do, this is a pretty common practice from my understanding. I installed the spring temporarily because what the instructions say is you're supposed to tighten down this bolt to the required amount, and then you fill it up with oil, and then you put in the spring. We are going to do that, but we're putting in the spring temporarily because since I don't have enough friction going on to get that bolt to tighten down, and I can't put oil in it until that bolt is tightened down, or else the oil will just come right out the bottom. I'm putting the spring in temporarily to see if I can get enough tension in there to try to tighten that bolt down with the spinny impact gun. So that's what we're doing right now. Also, as a side note, I've never dealt with any Matris stuff before, but this is all really high quality as far as finish and threads go and everything. So far, everything I'm seeing here looks beautifully finished. I would really love to be able to buy cartridge kits of this quality for this freaking price for my Mutant FJR. Where I have some Mutant suspension, because the only cartridge kits I can get for this bike cost something like freaking $1,500 from Traction Dynamics, and these ones were like $635. I would love cartridge kits of this quality to have on my bike. So got you guys got yourselves lucky there, dude. This is so far, and I haven't tried it out. I don't know how it actually performs, but so far this is looking pretty nice for the price, especially. And it's Italian. Who doesn't like fancy Italian stuff? But anyway, I'm gonna temporarily screw this in and try again with the spinny, try to get that bolt in the bottom tension down so we can take the spring back out and fill it with the correct amount of oil and then go. All right, so ye old spring trick worked. I put it in. I didn't even need the spinny with enough tension on there. I was able to tighten down that bottom bolt where it should be. Now, what we want to do is fill this up with oil, and it says it gives an amount right here, 140 millimeters from the top. That is usually when the fork is all the way down. Now I'm questioning myself. I'm like, 140 millimeters from the top when the fork is all the way down. When the fork is all the way down is usually what it is. Double check that, because now I'm trying to remember how to breathe because I forgot how I do things. So it says the oil level must be measured without the spring and the rod pushed completely down. Position the fork kit part as following. So yeah, the rod is all the way down. The guy is all the way down as well. So that's how we want this to be measured, and it should be 140 millimeters down from the top here. You totally do not need the fancy little tool. It's kind of fun to play with if you like. They're pretty cheap on places like AliExpress. You can also just totally use a tape measure, whatever. However you need to do it to get the oil level to 140 millimeters from the top, and from this top when the sleeve is all the way down and the rod is all the way down. Of course, we're not going to have the rod all the way down while filling it. We're going to fill it, and then we're going to work the rod up and down to make sure the oil is in everything. And we're using the oil that came with the kit. Nice, they supplied that. So yeah, we're going to kind of tend to overfill it to begin with, and then we're going to work the oil up and down, and then we're going to use this little nifty measuring tool that's already set at 140 millimeters and suck any additional oil out. I almost said off, but then my 12-year-old internal just would have died laughing. So, all right, so we're going to do that, and I will be back. All right, so you put the whole thing in there. You work the shaft up and down until there's no more bubbles, and then you suck off the rest. In the words of Uncle Roger, sorry kids. But yeah, so you keep pumping the shaft up and down until you're not hearing a lot of bubbles. And then since this is set to 140 millimeters, you provide some suction and it takes off everything except the top 140 millimeters. So now we're ready to put all the spring assembly in there and put it together. All right, so we got this all assembled together. Spring, black plastic thing, top thing. Let me get real scientific with the names. it looks like you tighten the top cap all the way down until it stops, and then you bring the lock nut up and tighten against it. The lock nut is a 17. The top is a 32, but I will understand if you don't have a 32 deep handy and just use a big ass crescent wrench. I don't think anybody's gonna really know. So yeah, now we've just gotta finish screwing this thing on together, make sure the preload's backed all the way off, of course, and screw it together and put it back on the bike. Okay, so I finished the Matris Fork upgrade, the new damper cartridges from Matris for the forks on the Rebel 1100. I just had a couple notes to leave at the end here. Now that it's all done and I've tested it out and kind of dialed it in a little bit. The two fork installs are almost identical. What they're calling the top out spring, which seems odd because I'm pretty sure it's not a top out spring. I'm pretty sure it's a bottoming spring, but that's a different story. What they're calling the top out spring in the directions is slightly different on the brake side than what I showed on the non-brake side. But you'll figure it out. It's a similar looking spring in a similar location, and it just slides on. It doesn't really sit in place. It just sort of slides into place, and then you put the cartridge through it. But that's it. The only other thing that I have is I got, I believe there were 8 Newton meters per kilogram springs, which comes out to 0.816 kilogram per millimeter is what they ended up recommending for my 140-pound wife. And that's really not enough sag for her. I left the little clips, the preload offset clips, in the neutral position. And for her weight, I should have gone down. I should have done the -4 position. The only other thing is they sent me 5-weight oil. And I wish I hadn't used that. I wish I'd used 10-weight oil. Because what I've found here, generally speaking, which you'll see if you watch in Dave Moss videos, but where you want your rebound is when you push the bike down and let it pop back up on its own. It should come up and stop. And as oil warms up, it gets thinner and loses viscosity. So right now it's about 50 degrees out here, which is really cold for Texas. Usually we're often riding in weather that's well over 100 degrees. So since this bike is dead cold, it's 50-degree weather, this is as thick as the viscosity of this oil is going to get. So I'm only going to lose damping from here. And this is the rebound damping is turned all the way. So it's not even the last click. There's kind of a last half click where it doesn't click into place. So the rebound damping on this is turned all the way up. And this is the 5-weight oil they recommend. If you notice, it kind of did a little bounce. You see that, how it comes up and then it kind of goes boink and comes back down a little bit. So that's actually pretty close to right. Because if I back it off, like, let me show you here. I think I just backed off like 4 clicks. Yeah, it's bouncing a little more. So that's the thing. Where I am, in the temperature ranges I'm at, this thing's not giving me quite enough rebound damping with the oil they recommended. It's right there. Like I said, when it's 50 degrees outside, the bike is dead cold, the suspension isn't warmed up. When my wife's riding this thing and it's going to be 100 degrees and we're doing 90 miles an hour for hours on end across bad Texas roads, it's not going to be enough damping. So eventually I will swap that out to probably 10-weight oil. That's it. Other than that, it works great. Fantastic kit, especially for the price. Like I've said in the video, I would love one for my FJR 1300, but they don't make them. And other than that, that's pretty much it. I covered the install, the same as the other fork leg. Highly recommend it, especially for the price. I think I got this for $635 or $645 plus tax off eBay. I'll leave a link to the seller's name, and guy was great. Had no problems with him when you did the order. You left in notes on checkout
how you're planning to use the bike, weight of the rider, if you have a pillion passenger you're planning on bringing, how much luggage you're going to be bringing. So they customize it for you, and it seemed to be drop shipped directly from Italy, from Matris, not the seller. So the seller never actually touches anything. He takes the money and then basically turns the order into Matris. So yeah, a great experience. Everything works great. Only things are, like I said, the preload is a little heavy for my wife, what they recommended. So I should have done the -4 offset, and I should have used 10-weight oil, which I'll probably do next time I got the front of this bike apart, and none of that's a big deal. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that, or learned something, or at least just, laughed at my greasy floor. Have a great day. Bye.